Good morning from the Nature Company. Here today we're so excited. Someone's just gifted us some amazing Phalaenopsis orchids. But we look at the care instructions. What do these mean? They seem a bit opaque. But yeah, we'll explain to you how to look after these babies to make sure that they flower again and again, and not just the usual cut flower that you're going to throw out after a few months. Okay, invariably they'll start off with something like place in high to medium light, but not direct sunlight. Okay, we all understand what direct sunlight is, and we can avoid putting them in that. So now what does high and medium light mean? So a high light area would be somewhere on a windowsill, right near a window, where no actual full sun is glaring through. If it's easier to understand, it would be somewhere in a room if you have a TV and you're getting a glare off the TV that you can't actually see your TV screen, you know you're in a high light area. For a medium light area, would be slightly in from the window, sort of on a kitchen table, in the middle of the room, as long as there's big windows to allow a lot of light through. And then a low light area would be somewhere at the far end of the room, somewhere where you need to turn a light on to actually feel comfortable during the day. And your Phalaenopsis themselves are going to be telling you whether the light conditions are good enough for them. As the leaves go a deep dark emerald green, you know you're giving them too little light. As they start to yellow and get burn marks on them, then you know you've got them in too high light conditions and they're probably getting direct sunlight. Okay, so that's the easy part done. And then secondly, we get something a little bit more vague. Something that says, keep soil moist, never allow it to dry out. Orchids aren't going to grow in soil. So the potting soil you're going to be growing your roses in is no good for your orchids. We're looking for bark, coir, perlite, things with large air spaces that will allow the water to drain freely from your plant but still hold a bit of moisture to be available for the roots. A big problem with Phalaenopsis, one of the biggest killers of them, is overwatering. People tend to think they need to be kept moist, so water, water, water. No, that way you're going to rot your roots and not have nice healthy looking roots in your plant, and your plant will slowly go backwards and die. So what we want to do is, probably a good rule of thumb is once a week watering. And when they say never let your orchid dry out, drying out occasionally is going to be a good thing for your orchid to ensure that all the air spaces are open and not filled with liquid or water, so that the plant can breathe properly. And as you're going to be watering from below, allowing it to dry out occasionally is a good thing, so that the bottom watering will rehydrate the media properly and you won't have any problems. Also, with keeping it completely moist all the time, you're going to land up with bacterial and fungal infections in amongst your roots. So allowing it to dry out occasionally is a good thing. Then another broad description that you look at: fertilize once a month with universal plant food. Universal plant food? So often what is meant by universal plant food is a general plant food, something that's not specific for a time of year, for the growing season or the flowering season, something that's just going to give the general all-round nutrients for the plant so that it can keep healthy. Anyway, once a month is easy to understand. With Phalaenopsis you can actually feed every 2 weeks, but you can use a more dilute solution of your feed. I always suggest go for organic, that way you have less problems with salt buildups that have to be flushed out. As I said, I prefer to use organic plant foods, but the chemical plant foods are fine. Those are those white, green, blue powders that you mix with water to feed your plants. But you'll notice when you start getting a little white, like snow dusting on top of your pots, that you've got a salt buildup. This needs to be rinsed out, flushed out as quickly as possible, so that your plant isn't set back by all the excess salts that can actually draw moisture away from the plant again. And when it suggests keeping the soil moist, watering your plant is not simple throwing water over your whole plant. What I like to do is water from the bottom by sinking it into water to allow the water to soak up through and ensure that all the media has been well drenched with the water. When feeding, invariably I add my food into this water so that I'm feeding and watering at the same time. And with the chemical plant and orchid foods, make sure that you stick to the mixing instructions. Don't think you're going to be doing your orchid the world of good by adding in extra of the feed. All you're going to be doing is souring your media and causing salt buildups, which is bad for your plant. And then the most bizarre one of all, that's often very difficult to understand, is adjust watering conditions to season and temperature. What does that mean? How do I know how to adjust for the season or the temperature? What is my plant doing that I need to understand when to change the watering? This is relatively easy to understand if you think of it in regards to evaporation. The warmer, more humid times of year, there's going to be less evaporation as there's more moisture in the air, and evaporation will take place at a bit slower. So invariably at times of year like that, you're looking at once a week for a Phalaenopsis should be ideal. In the cooler climates around the world where these are kept indoors, indoor orchids will generally dry out quickly because heaters are placed for most of the time, keeping the air temperatures up, but also with very dry air, very little moisture in the air. So that will suck the water straight out of the medium extremely quickly, and you'll probably then need to be watering twice or 3 times a week, depending on what your temperatures that you are keeping in your house. And also you'll be able to see when the media has dried out across the top, you can generally say that's a good time to water. And then occasionally you can allow it to dry out completely, but not long enough that it starts to affect your plant. And also in the hot times of year where you have air conditioners running, never have your plant where the air from the conditioner is blowing directly onto the plant. These are tropical plants. They don't like that cold, constant airflow. And also air from an air conditioner is very dry. It's also going to suck moisture straight out of the media. And then you're going to have to water more frequently as well. But as I say, direct air from the air conditioner is just going to destroy your plant. And occasionally you'll find with some of these tags, they'll suggest put 2 or 3 ice cubes on your Phalaenopsis once a week. These are tropical plants. They don't like the cold. The ice cubes are going to burn the surface roots, and you're putting cold water into the plant, and that's not ideal. What we'd like to do is give them lukewarm water. It's just straight from the tap, room temperature, and you'll be A for away. So now we have our Phalaenopsis orchid. We've read the instructions and we know how to care for our orchids. We can peel back the plastic. And enjoy our beautiful new Phalaenopsis. But in doing so, as we open it, we're going to be checking the media, checking the roots, that all is still in good order. But in the next video, I'll be explaining to you what I do as I buy my new Phalaenopsis. It's a way to ensure that they're going to be long-lived and are not just thrown away once the flowers are done. And by looking after your Phalaenopsis as you buy it, you can almost guarantee that you'll get a wonderful display of flowers every year, and possibly twice a year depending on your environment. The long-lasting flowers will give you joy for months and months. If you find my basic guide on how to care for your new Phalaenopsis from these vague, almost ununderstandable instructions, please like, subscribe, and share to help others save their orchids from a miserable death.